Welcome to Page Turners, a weekly bookish podcast for every kind of reader. Whether you want to explore a variety of genres, tick books off your growing TBR, or simply skip the reading for book club, we've got you covered. That's Liv.
And that's Amy.
Hello.
Hello.
I wanted
So
to,
somber.
I know. I wanted to do the kiss my fingers and
Yeah.
yeah, no. So no guesses as to what this episode is. How are you?
I'm better than I was on Sunday, but I'm still very much working my way through the stages of grief.
Mm.
How are you?
Well, I only finished last night, so
It's
yeah.
fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, let's move on from the how are yous. They're not necessary right now. Everyone's in the same boat. Let's just move straight on to what's going on in the book world, eh?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the lassie who wrote Daddy's Little Toy,
The controversial book that we talked about in the last episode. Yep.
yes, has been arrested
Oh, wow.
for
Oh,
for CSAM, so child sexual assault material.
wow.
Yep.
As in producing it herself or distributing it?
All of the above potentially.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
Accused.
I presume this came from her publishing this book or the arc. She was reported by someone who had read the book.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Fair.
so her pen name is Tori Woods, and TikTok has found her real
Right.
persona because I think she writes erotic fiction under Tori Woods, but her real name's Lauren Tesselin Mastroza or something. She's from Sydney, and yeah, no, she's been charged.
Wow. Okay.
They began investigations in March following reports of a fictional novel containing child abuse material.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Fair. Really, they take a hard line, which
Yeah,
I'm not against.
it's an interesting one, right? Like, because we talked a little bit about it last week about how obviously there's a taboo and anyone should be able to write whatever they want, but there's definitely a line there. I wonder if this sort of this and I'm not saying it does, I'm just curious as to how much this infringes upon free speech.
I know when I was thinking about it there, because this is new to me, so you telling me this is the first time I've actually heard it, so I haven't really had any time to process it. But yeah, that is a bit interesting because where does that line get drawn?
Yeah.
What can you say? What can you not say? Is it because, I mean, I haven't read it, so I can't speak to that, but is it because it glorifies that kind of content? Is it because it's too graphic? Like, what are the parameters there? I guess we
Yeah.
don't necessarily know because neither of us have read it or have seen the charges or anything like that. But that's really interesting because, I mean, we know from what we read that where do you, it's difficult, isn't it? I guess because it's vulnerable children, it's children and it's vulnerable people, but where does that line get drawn? Because we know that there are very graphic things written about in books all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. The charges are the woman was charged with possessing child abuse material, disseminating child abuse material, and producing child abuse material. It's weird. Like we said, neither of us have read it. I don't think either of us have any intention of reading it. I think the only
No.
reason I would read it is to maybe form my opinion on what's happening. I wouldn't ever.
Mm.
No, there's nothing in that book that makes me go, "Ooh, maybe I'll read that." That's titillating.
That's
Um,
really interesting though, because I always thought child abuse material was, you know, videos, images, because there is a victim there. But I know there is now becoming a craze because of the world that we currently live in, and it will be relevant to what we're talking about today, where there are artificially, AI images of horrific things, including child sexual abuse. So is it that? Is that where we're at? Where, there doesn't necessarily have to be an actual person that is a victim for there to have been a crime.
Ooh, ooh, that.
Wow.
Um, well,
Mm,
guys,
okay.
let's just put it this way: if you're coming to this podcast um, for those kinds of opinions or those kinds of definitive arguments, you are not going to get them.
Please don't make us do it. Because I don't want to. I don't know. That's wild. I did not expect you to tell me that. When you said there was an update, I thought you were going to say something like they pulled it. I did not think you were going to say something as extreme as that has happened.
Yeah, yeah. She's
Okay.
come out and said that it's a big misunderstanding, that the book is definitely not promoting or inciting anything to do with child sexual abuse or paedophilia. A direct quote from her, I think, is what is being said is grossly disturbing and breaks my heart as well as makes me sick. She stressed that the book was fictional, adding that she understood why some of the parts were being frowned upon.
Being frowned upon, even just using that
Literally,
term.
those associated with the book, such as the cover designer, graphic designer, and editor, were being wrongly attacked as they were not aware of the contents. These ladies were under no impression that I was Lauren Ashley, writing as Tori Woods. I reached out to these ladies to work with them as Tori and only Tori. So, yeah, shit.
Okay, heavy. A heavy start to a heavy episode.
Maybe a bit of lightness. We talked a bit about the irresistible blueberry cafe cover that is seemingly very much like the Strawberry Patch Pancake et al. Dream Harbor series. And we did a little bit, well, I did a little bit more research and found out that there was a different cover for it when it was originally published. So clearly it has since had a revamp, maybe to try and get into that crowd. But we do not blame the author for that. We can't. There's nothing we're gonna blame someone in marketing. Ugh.
Uh, but so did the name also get changed?
I don't
No.
believe so.
Just because the name doesn't sound dissimilar to what
Mm,
Laurie has written. But
yeah.
okay. No, I agree. It's definitely some kind of marketing ploy to jump on that bandwagon and the success of the Dream Harbor books. Um, hmm,
Yeah.
interesting.
I think titles can be exactly the same because,
How formulaic are the titles in fantasy romance that we've talked about again and again and
oh my
again?
God,
So
a blank of blank and blank. What a
yeah, so
blank
I
and
feel like
blank. Yeah.
you can sort of have one rule for one genre and another one for a different one. So
But yeah, for
yeah.
sure. The cover was the thing that was the most sort of like, oh. But then you think about it, Charlie Bowater, the artist who illustrates people beautifully for a lot of fantasy covers, illustrates an awful lot of authors, and it comes to a point where you sort of think they all sort of look the same.
Yeah. Is that potentially a sequel or is that written by the same person? Yeah, like there's that
Exactly.
little bit of question around that, isn't there? So in the same way, you could argue it for this one. Okay. That's interesting though.
Amy, let's
Mm.
race through this because we're going for the big ticket. We're going for the big ticket item tonight. What are you currently reading?
Hunger Games. So I finished this on Sunday, reread Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes on Monday, Tuesday, and then started Hunger Games last night. So you can see what's going on here. You can
Mm,
see how I might be potentially fixating a little bit on 2008 Amy's experiences.
never. Not you. Not
Not
none of
me.
us hyperfixating.
And I also watched the Hunger Games last night and made Rudy watch it with me, and he was blown away by it again.
I wanted to watch the Hunger Games last night, but Alex was like, "No, we have to wait until I've finished the book, Sunrise."
That's fair. That's fair because you do get more from it, I think, watching it, knowing what you now know. So that's fair. What are you reading?
The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins.
Had to be done, right? Had to be done. There's
Yeah.
there's so much we now know, and there's so many things that we're now going to appreciate so much more.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of the day on TikTok looking at people talking about it, and yeah, like Amy, I am hyperfixating on the year 2008. So,
Yeah, just watching edits, getting
oh,
upset.
yeah, getting upset, living our best lives. Oh, what a
I'm
time.
back there. I'm back there. Back there again.
Yeah, I don't want to be back there in my 15-year-old body, but I would like to sort of get to experience them for the first time again.
hmm And I feel like you're kind of going to get that a little bit because you're going to go back there reading them with a new lens.
Yeah.
So that's a treat.
Oh, is it? Is it a treat? Okay.
Okay,
So,
let's get started the usual way.
well, the usual way, Amy, would be for you to tell us what we've read this week.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I don't need to tell you. I feel like you probably already know. But we read Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, the fifth edition to the Hunger Games series. And we are different people for it.
Oh, are we better? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Ask our therapists. All right, very quickly, trigger warnings, Amy, take it away.
Death of a parent, physical violence, death, murder, graphic on page, gore, blood, violence, mentions of suicide, poison.
What about peril?
Peril. Peril's got to be in there. I felt peril. I was on my couch.
Yeah, that pretty much just sums it up. Maybe allusions to real world events.
Hmm.
Right, should we I'm gonna have to apologize ahead of time for this fucking terrible speedy summary, but it's gonna miss a lot out, but we're gonna get the bare bones of it.
It's fine. We're going to talk about it in a lot of depth afterwards, so don't worry. You ready?
Oh yeah.
Three, two, one, go.
Haymitch Abernathy is wrongfully reaped for the 50th Hunger Games on his 16th birthday. He's picked from the panicked crowd to replace a tribute who was executed trying to run. He's off to the capital with Luella, a kid sister to him, Maisie Lee, a twin and apparent stuck-up townie, and Wyatt, the son of a betsman who places odds on the games each year. Luella dies in the parade, and Haymitch steals a carriage to present her body to President Snow, only for none of it to be aired to the district. After a private audience with Snow at Pulutark Heavensby's family home, a girl from District 11, now a doppelganger for Luella and controlled by the capital, is presented to Haymitch, who is then told he is to pretend that Luella survived the crash. During training, Ampert, a young tribute from District 3 and son of former victor Beatty, forms a large alliance between most of the non-Korea districts. In the arena, however, Haymitch goes it alone, determined to keep the others safe from the capital vitriol, but also to try and stop the games themselves. Ampert meets up with him and they successfully flood the arena, although Ampert is soon torn apart and eaten by mutt squirrels. The games do not stop despite the flood, and desperate, Haymitch finds the generator for the arena, but is protected by a rebounding force field. Maisie Lee is targeted also and killed by mutt birds, and the final Korea attacks Haymitch only to be killed by her own axe rebounding off the force field. Haymitch wakes up healed in the tribute's apartment and left alone for numerous days before being presented at the victor's ceremony. The games are played back, though it is an extremely edited version showing nothing of the reality they all faced. Mags and Wirus, his mentors, are also present, but they have been clearly tortured and they cling to each other. He arrives back at District 12 to find his house is ablaze and his mother and young brother are trapped inside. He goes to see his girl, Lenore Dove, and they are happy to be reunited. He feeds her gumdrops he thought he bought her, only for them to be poisoned gifts from President Snow. She dies in his arms after making him promise to stop the games. In the epilogue, we see post-trilogy Haymitch with Katniss and Peter. He thinks Lenore would be proud, but she tells him it's not time to be with her yet as he must stay with his family. Snow lands on top, but fire is catching.
Oh, goodness, this is going to be a fun episode. 2 minutes nine.
Oh, that's fine.
That's fine. That's impressive for this book. All right. First impressions. What were your thoughts going in?
That this was gonna destroy me emotionally, that this was gonna be phenomenal, that I was probably going to end up obsessed with the Hunger Games all over again.
Yeah, I
Yours?
think similar, very, very similar. I think as well, though, that there was a little bit of speculation around what was this book actually going to be about? Because could it really just be about Haymitch's games? Because we think we know how those games go. We know how Haymitch ends up. We understand he doesn't have a happy ending. And we also see his games in Catching Fire when Katniss and Peeta go back and watch. So we think, what more can she possibly tell us that we don't already know?
Hmm.
Oh boy. I had high expectations going in, but I was prepared for twists and turns. I just wasn't prepared for how emotionally gutting the book was going to be.
Yeah.
As soon as the propaganda quotes were, the Orwell quote at the
Ah,
start
yeah.
about propaganda, I kind of read that and I thought, so we don't know how Haymitch's games went at all then.
Yeah.
This is what that means.
All propaganda is lies, even when one is telling the truth. I don't think this matters so long as one knows what one is doing and why.
Hmm.
Yeah. The character of Haymitch is presented to us very clearly in the first, let's say the first Hunger Games book. He's a drunk, he's useless, he's a sort of a shoddy mentor who's clearly lost all hope.
Yeah, he's very much shut off, isn't he? He doesn't really want to connect with anybody.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think we find out how long he's been doing this until the second book when you realise that maths be mathin' and
Yeah.
he's seen himself 24 Hunger Games.
Yeah, and we know that there hasn't been a mentor before him because Lucy Gray, we don't know what happened to her. So we don't, yeah. So and we know from in Haymitch's games, he doesn't have a District 12 mentor. So we know that he's been the only one from his games up until Katniss's first games.
Yeah. I wonder how much of what we see of original Haymitch is actually Haymitch. I mean, because obviously we get this young boy who's 16 and he's quite hopeful and quite naive, but he's naive despite living where he lives.
I think he's got a sense of it might not happen to me.
Mm,
It's that kind of feeling of like that hope. There's a real running theme the whole way through that hope is greater than fear. It's like that's what kills you. And I think he's clever in the sense that he gets the little things. Like we've got a lot of humor of when he first wakes up in the morning and he puts on his like what's essentially like a pair of shorts fashioned from a sack, and
yeah,
it says something like
proper
courtesy of the capital on it or
good,
something like
yeah.
that. And it's like, oh, so he kind of gets that side of things. But you're right, he's a very different character from what we see in the Hunger Games.
How did you find that?
It's quite jarring to start with, I think, because you think you know Haymitch, don't you? You think this is a character that we know and love. But it was really well done because you saw the more of his hope, the more things that happen to him that just strips away that hope. You
Yeah,
see him mold it, yeah, into the character that we then know. And by the end of the book, before the epilogue, we already know what's coming. We
yeah,
can see that. And it's so tragic because there's so many allusions made to because he's like a bootlegger. He like makes drink, doesn't he? And it's so horribly ironic in the way that Suzanne likes to do, in that he says multiple times, I don't drink. He sees it almost as currency. So when he's given some drink for his birthday
yeah.
by Hattie, he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to use this to trade. So much of that horrible foreshadowing is there right from the beginning.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip us straight to the end just for a quick second. I would have really liked when he talks about the groceries that appear and the money that comes under his door every month. I would have liked if Snow had sort of gotten in a final shot. I thought it would have been even more gut-wrenching if he's the one that is providing him with the spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then I think to myself, is it perhaps actually even more heart-wrenching for us to watch him go and get it each week, each month, each week, however much he does himself, rather than, oh, it's here, it's convenient. No, I have a need. I need to drown my sorrows. I need to forget. I need this, so I'm gonna go and do it. Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
I love how I put up a point and then immediately as I was saying it, I was like, no, no, back it up, back it up.
Undo. Nope. No, I like your thought process there. I think it is almost more tragic that he basically completely changes his viewpoint because of everything that happens to him.
Yeah. Would you like to take a moment to talk about the other tributes?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yes. No. Yes. Oh man. Oh man.
Specifically
Ah,
our three from 12.
they were so expertly crafted because they all had such a part to play.
Mm,
So Luella is Katniss, right? And even when you first read about her, you can see the parallels instantly. And she's almost like a sister to him.
mm.
Oh,
I think
gutting.
Luella is actually, now that I think about it, is Luella not prim?
No, I think Luella's Katniss.
Only because I think prim is what Katniss would have been if she hadn't lost her father and had to become her father and provide for the family.
I think just because he says about you're my sweetheart, and I don't use that term for just about anybody, and then we see him use it again. And although we think he's using it kind of scathingly and a bit like, like, oh yeah, whatever, sweetheart,
Mhm.
we now know that does become a term of endearment for him, and he does see her, I think, in that role.
Yeah, then I think I would say that Katniss is Luella as opposed to Luella is Katniss. Because,
Mm.
but,
Yeah,
but
well, that's the question. Do you think that, I mean, we don't know, but do you think that this has all been pre-planned by Suzanne, or do you think that some of it has been inspired by how people have reacted to?
it's interesting, isn't it? I think it's probably fan led.
Did you feel this was fan-led? Did you feel there was a bit of fan service here?
Oh yeah, and I would really
Yeah.
like to talk about that at some point.
Okay.
But because
Okay. I have it
yeah,
on my notes, so I thought I'll bring it up now, but we can talk about it later. Yeah.
yeah, I
Okay.
think whilst I'm not saying that I don't think Suzanne Collins is clever enough to have this all in her head or
Oh,
whatever, I
but they
just
were a
think
long time ago. I mean, the first one was published in 2008, and then maybe she never intended to do prequels because how do you know how popular something's going to become?
yeah,
So maybe
exactly.
she had an idea that there was a tragic backstory for Haymitch, but what that was going to specifically look like, she maybe hadn't thought about that yet.
Well, I mean, there's a line in Catching Fire where he basically because he walks in on them watching his games and he says within 2 weeks of me winning the games everyone I loved was dead, my mum, my
Hmm.
brother, my girl, like everyone I loved was dead.
Mm.
So, I don't know whether maybe she didn't have everything planned out, but we were already aware that Haymitch was a tragic character.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and what a testament to her that you still wanted to read that
Mm.
because being propelled through a story, typically it's because you want to know what happens to these characters, but we knew it wasn't going to end well.
No. Did I keep telling myself that it was going to end okay and that
Oh, me too.
I know that there was never ever more than one victor until Katniss and Peter won. And was I still like, it's okay, Maisley's coming home, Maisley's
I
coming
couldn't.
home.
That's the one thing I could not square up in my head, Liv, was Maisie not making it. I thought I can't even think about how this is going to happen.
Ah! Um, sorry, we got a little sidetracked there. Yeah, so
Oh,
let's talk about Maisley. Obviously, you're quintessential sort of introduced as a mean girl, but is actually just absolutely class. What I like that
yeah.
Suzanne did is she is a mean girl, but you know that it doesn't come from a place of hate.
It's protection again, isn't it? It's very much how she deals with the situation that she's in.
Yeah, and like it keeps her protected from the sadness that is essentially the life of District 12.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's perfect all the way through. Just her verbal blows with Drusilla, then her in the interviews and everything, and the fact that she just absolutely takes down a career with absolute like not physically, I mean she does, she takes down panache, which is just sick, but also the fact that she just it's like, oh, at least we won't have to wear snot green into the arena. Like just
It's great.
gives no shits. And I love the bit where she's on the train, and you can see it all coming from that one bit she says on the train to Luella. If they won't treat us like animals if we don't behave like animals, or they can't treat us like animals, or if they see us as something else, like whatever particular way she says it, it's amazing. And then it just gives you
Yeah.
every insight into who she is.
Absolutely. And you're right. She has got the meanness of maybe a character like Joanna. Like
Mm,
that's fine. But she's got the compassion and the kindness of someone like Peter. So she's because we see the glimpses, we see the way she is with the other tributes, the way she wants them to all take a token into the games, and she's very passionate about helping them think about how best they can do that. Because I don't know if exactly at this point in time, because it's not as bad as 10. We're not in a zoo, and we're not quite as we're not really a guest of the capital the way that Katniss and Peeta are in their games. Like we're
yeah.
somewhere in the middle, very much still.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's very much
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you there. Yeah, Katniss and Peter, like you said, the perfect turn of phrase, guests of the capital, and it's giving them for that week, however few days, it's giving them what they could win. It gives them this is the life you could lead, and almost tries to motivate them all to win.
Yes.
Whereas I think
Yes.
when we have Haymitch's time, it's less of like, you've got a chance here, whoa, and more
Mm. Mm.
yeah, give them so it didn't seem to me that the glory of the capital was as shiny for these guys.
No,
Um,
no.
whether that's that Snow's only just come into power because I don't I'm trying to remember the original trilogy. I don't think I remember how long he's been in power. I know
Not how long, no, not how long he's been in power, but I do think that the idea of sponsors and betting,
mm,
that was the 11th games.
mhm. Well, that
Once
all,
he got pardon from the peacekeepers,
yeah,
and then they asked him the questions about how would you develop the games? I think that's very much when things changed
yeah,
to
yeah.
make them
Well,
more about entertainment and less about punishment.
less about punishment for the capital for sure.
Mm.
But yeah, ramming home that propaganda of this is necessary. We need this is something we don't want to do. We don't actually want to do this, but it's necessary for people to remember.
I liked how in the 50th Haymitch's time, the propaganda is we talk about how it's in District 12. So it's like no peace, no peacekeepers, no peace, like this kind of thing. But then when we get to the capital, where we assume that's all very much accepted and understood, we see straight away when they arrive at the train station and that propaganda is everywhere there too. So it's almost still trying to sell the idea of the Hunger Games to them. So they're still not fully on board.
Yeah, I always think, and I think this may be more of a visual thing that I've gotten from the films, the sheer amount of people that must live in the capital. They ain't all going to be on board, right?
No.
So I
No, and that's what Suzanne does brilliantly, doesn't she? Like we've got good and bad in everybody. So not everybody in District 12 is good. And not
mm,
everybody on the rebel side is a good person. Like look at Plutarch, goodness me. Like on the right side, but an awful human being. And then look at the capital with Effie. She lives there. She's very much subscribed to that whole belief system. She sees it as an honor. She wants them to see it that way. But we know she's fundamentally a good, compassionate character.
yeah, we only know that because we've seen her at the end, right? Like she
Mhm.
challenges her own self-belief and view. In
Mhm.
this book, in Sunrise, she is very much still indoctrinated.
I loved that.
She is drinking that capital Kool-Aid.
Yes, totally. And I loved it. I thought that's so realistic though, because she wouldn't have just at that stage, when she's not even been part of the kind of mentor program of bringing the tributes on board, she's not really aware of it yet. She hasn't seen the horrors of it all yet. So it makes perfect sense to me that she's still like, have a positive mental attitude. It's like,
You mentioned Plutarch Heavensbee. He is someone I have in my notes, and I really want to talk about him.
oh, yeah, let's do it.
You said, and I'm curious as to as we talk about him, how we will both form our firm opinions of him, that
Mm.
he is obviously on the rebel side. I don't agree. I think Plutarch is on his side. I appreciate that that could be, if he is very much on that side, then surely he would just stay. He wouldn't bother spicing things up with trying to aid the rebels or whatever because he would just he's a Heavensbee and they're clearly a very noble family within the capital. So he could, it's fair if someone wanted to say, oh, he could just like stay there and do nothing. But I think he's very much on the side of sort of, I want to say chaos, but that sounds a bit cheesy.
I No, I actually was going to say the same thing. He has got that kind of low-key side to him where it's like he just likes to sit back and watch the show.
Mm.
Like, because he does drop little questions of like, well, why do you put up with it? Why does anyone put up with it? Why don't you do something about it? You outnumbered the peacekeepers 4-1. Why aren't you doing anything? But he just drops those little seeds, plants those seeds, and then very much stands back because he doesn't want to be part of the consequences, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it because actually that sparked something in me where I think he's the ultimate game maker. Not
Mm,
just
yeah,
for the games,
yeah.
but within life, moves and counter moves that we see him sort of spouting in Catching Fire. I mean, he's the worst person in the fucking world. Being like, oh, well, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you do something about it, Plutarch? Why don't
He's a
you?
child. Ah, and the fact that it's like, oh yeah, I got you a little bit of a goodbye with your mum and said, but yeah, I want to film their reactions to being absolutely devastated by you having to go into the games illegally because you were not reaped legally, and I want to film it multiple times because I want to make sure I get just the right angle.
And
That's
just the right
abhorrent.
times. Sid
Yeah,
clutching at his mum's skirts like oh God. Yeah. How old Sid is he? 12?
I think so.
Yeah, he's a 12-year-old boy.
Because
Which,
it's his first games, isn't it? It's the first time that he could be reaped, I'm pretty sure.
oh, maybe
Isn't that right?
no, he's not reaped yet. He's not being reaped because he says Mum and I will have to talk to him. And if you, so maybe he's even younger than that. Maybe he's like 10. I don't know.
Maybe he is. So we're not getting a complete parallel with Katniss then, because I know there was a couple, but we're not getting a Sid and Prim. That's maybe a
Yeah.
little bit too obvious, a little bit too on the nose, actually. So yeah, fair enough.
But let's talk about potentially things that are on the nose. It did get to a point where I was like, how many cameos are we going to have, guys? How many cameos are we going to have here, Suzanne? It seems all a little,
It's a
uh,
little bit convenient at times, right? Yeah.
yeah.
And I can imagine her writing it being like, they are gonna eat this up. Yeah. Mags and Wirus, maybe a little bit on the nose. But then I
I
like the fact that we understood what their sort of how things ended up for them. Horrible, tragic, disgusting, but made sense.
I text you. Amy had finished on Sunday. I was at my mum and dad's, and they never left me alone. Fucking any time to read, or they were just talking at me. So it was not the right environment to read. So you're being like, "How's things going?" And I was sort of texting you, "Oh, just met Mags and Wirus again." And then I remember taking a pause, and then I text you being like, "It scares me that we how did Mags know? How's Mags a mute?" How's this happened? Like, I know, Wirus is obviously a little eccentric now, but she's clearly, there's
Yeah,
something
they're going to break her. Yeah.
broken within her by the time we meet them both again in Catching Fire. So it was very much like, oh, okay, I think I would have maybe toned down. I think it was fascinating to see Wirus's games and heard about them and watching how clever she is. Not that I understood a fucking word when we were talking about the games. I was like,
Mirror world with a blind spot. I kept trying to think how that would
no,
work, but
no
yeah,
idea.
whatever.
Yeah.
Sounded cool. I think the point was that she didn't actually kill anybody herself. She
Yeah.
just sort of she outsmarted the games, and she was there to show that the arena is just one big game that you can win if you
Yeah.
are smart enough.
Well, I think it's the parallel between the games as an extension of the capital. So if you beat the games, you can beat the capital, and that is that sort
Mm,
of spark of hope that Katniss breathes in the original trilogy
mhm,
that shows that the districts can rise up against the capital. There
mhm.
is this chance. I think it would have been really good because Mags is the main mentor there. She is the mother
Yes.
figure to all four of them. Wirus just sort of, bless her, just sort of comes in, says something eccentric, and then pops out. But to have that sort of shot of them at the end, just clutching each other.
I
Or
think it really shows a couple of things. So it really shows Snow's cruelty in
mm,
that, it shows you that catching fire, the whole idea of putting the past winners back in, not only do we know that they're traumatized by the games, but we now know that there is other trauma involved. He knows what happened to Mags and Wirus as a result of the 50th. What's a little bit unrealistic, I suppose, is that it's waited to the next quarter quell to do that because if it happened in Haymitch's games, why is it took so long? But perhaps it was that sense of once Haymitch's games sort of once they were over, there was maybe a sense of the rebels were crushed and it
yeah,
was just too much to come back from, and they had to take time to lick their wounds and come back. And it wasn't until Katniss
yeah,
that we saw that fire catch again.
yeah. Ooh.
Mm.
Um, yeah, no, it definitely. I think Snow had to be exceptionally cruel to shove them into the dirt, right? Like to crush them. But yeah, I mean, Beatty just loses his son, and in the worst way. Also, I know Haymitch is a 16-year-old boy, but God forbid you've got a spear, just stick it through Ampert's head.
I know.
Sorry. So he waits until they've peeled the flesh from his bones, and he's just like, "Oh no, I'm trying to get the squirrels." Stab Ampert in the fucking head.
I know. I don't know if the idea, maybe we'll see it in the film. And how they're going to make a film of this, I have no idea. But maybe it was like too many of them and he couldn't quite get in. But you would try, wouldn't you? Because that was the one thing that Beatty had said to Haymitch was, please, he has to die. I know he has to die. There's no way they're going to let him out after what I've done. But please make his death quick and
Yeah.
as painless as possible. And that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at all.
I mean, at the very least, we aren't told whether or not he's eaten alive, where the suggestion is perhaps left open for us as to how horrific we want to make it. Is he eaten alive potentially, or have they torn out his throat or something like that so that he dies and then they eat him?
Mm,
I don't know though.
yeah.
I don't know. It's probably a little column A, probably a little column B.
When we realized it was Beatty, I was really shocked because there'd
Yeah.
never been any mention of him having a family.
No, not at all. And I mean, that tells us because then we mentioned again that he has a wife and she's pregnant.
So what happens to them? Oh, gosh. These poor people are just constantly, their lives are just ripped apart over and over and over again.
Yeah, it really puts into perspective, I think, how much Katniss isn't the first one. She isn't the first one to suffer. And throughout the book, like, Peter tells us you're not the only one who's got people to protect, that sort of
Mhm.
thing.
Yep.
And I think sometimes she comes off with real big main character energy by being
She
like,
does.
no one else has suffered as badly as me.
Yeah.
Yes, she
Yeah.
has suffered absolutely 100%. It's awful and and all the way through. But every victor, it's the fact that victory is not, what does Haymitch say? You do not win the games, you survive them.
You survive the games. And that makes nothing, I mean, this one in particular, I think really hits that home.
Yeah.
He wins, but God, at what cost?
I feel like it's time you told people the story about what happened when you Sunday.
So I knew I was going to be upset, and I was sitting on the couch reading for most of the day, and Rory was kind of sitting next to me, and he's never read any of the books. So I said, this is going to be really tragic, this particular one. And the last bit of this book is horrendous, which we'll get to in a minute, I'm sure. When I finished it, I sort of stood up and he said, "Oh, what happened? So what happened? Did it end the way you thought it did?" And I just said, "Yeah, he lost," and just walked out of the room. I was so angry because we knew it was going to happen, but oh, I couldn't have imagined how much he would have went through
Mm.
and how cruel it was. And if it was all engineered by Snow, then oh my God, we know he's a psychopath, but come on. I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was a lot of it was just horrible, horrible coincidences that worked out in that way. Well, I know he intended it to happen, but how could he tell he was going to feature the gumdrop? I mean, come on.
I think he knew it was going to happen at some point because I mean he's so clever and he knows the position Haymitch is in, right? He knows Lenore Dove, Haymitch's love, is a sort of not an exact replica of Lucy Gray.
Get over it. Like, get over it, you fucking loser. Like the fact that that moment when he's talking about her and you're like, how long ago was this? 40 years ago.
I want to talk about something quite quickly before we get into the end properly. The bit where Haymitch sort of discovers that, or like he's in the apartment and it's just bread and milk, which is obviously Snow's sort of like ha ha at him for like soaking
Mm.
poison. It's what they had a little in joke before buddies. And on the telly, it just keeps going, repeating, repeating, and repeating of different sort of games. And then he lets him see different footages of like sort of the press around Lucy's game, the 10th game, which
Mhm.
has been wiped off the face of the earth as far as we're concerned.
Mhm.
Then he figures it out that
Mhm.
Snow knows about
No,
her.
that's who she's when
Yeah,
she I think she what does she do? Does she point to someone in the audience or look at someone in the audience when she's singing at the
yeah,
interview and he
yeah,
knows it's Snow?
yeah. But nothing comes of it. And maybe that is a way to show us that Haymitch is well and truly broken because he has this information. I mean, not there's not much he could do with it, but he could tell
There's a
someone,
weakness there.
yeah, there's a weakness, exactly. But Snow breaks him so unequivocally that despite being one of the only people that know the weakness, he,
But yeah, we know how arrogant Snow is too. So we know that he would in a way think, what are you going to do about it? What can
Mm,
you possibly do about this? I'll give you the tools so that you have the option to do it, to think you might have something that you can use here.
mm,
But I have crushed you so much that what are you going to actually do?
yeah, yeah. I think he takes a risk with Haymitch though. At the end of the day, so there's parallels to Joanna, and we've already spoken a little bit about Joanna, but in Catching Fire, she rages against the Capitol because she says there's no one left that I love, you know? So Snow takes a risk by killing everybody in Haymitch's life because, what else would he be ever be frightened for? So
Mhm,
I think
mhm,
it's a really interesting one because by the time we see the Capitol in one, two, and three, we sort of they're this well-oiled, perfect, brutal machine that doesn't slip up, that doesn't make mistakes, that doesn't do anything, it almost doesn't take any risks. Snow's too much of a game maker and been doing games for so long that he is able to anticipate every single thing.
mhm.
So to see him in sort of like, I mean, he's still all powerful, but to see him maybe taking those chances it's a really interesting thing.
No, totally. And I really like what you said there about it being this well-oiled machine in Katniss's time. I really liked, and to begin with, to be honest, it was a bit jarring when some of the game makers were actually in the arena. I was like, what's going on? Why is this happening? But then I realized maybe they don't have the technology yet to be able to fix these things without people actually physically going into the arena to fix them.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the kind of muck trap things, isn't it? Where they come in and they go out, where they're actually just trying to physically fix it. So yeah, that was really like, what? Why? What's going on? But I liked to see those little hints of, okay, we're not actually at that point yet. It's still new-ish. We're still developing all these technologies. We saw a little bit of it with Gaul in 10 with the snakes, and like that was the first introduction to that kind of horrendous stuff. But it's still not perfect by the 50th.
Yeah, yeah. I had to read it again, and like, I think I must have read that bit about three times, being like, what the fuck? There's people here? What do you mean? And then I was like, oh wait, no, of course, yeah. Speaking of things that we sort of see a little shadow of, and then don't really see in the trilogy because maybe they didn't work, Lulu specifically.
Oh,
So we lose Luella in the crash, and like it was in the summary, present Haymitch with this doppelganger. Not perfect carbon copy of Luella, but somebody that looks enough like Luella that they've sort of maybe modified a little in the face. She
and then
is,
they've got a pump on her where they just pump sedatives, I presume, some
yep,
kind of like depressant into her so that she remains at a fairly neutral state, and they have bug her ear so that someone can constantly feed her what to say and what to do. But she is a child we later learn from, we assume, District 11,
yep.
who looks, as you say, slightly enough like Luella that they can maybe fill her face or modify it somehow, however they do that. That was sick. I think that's one of the most twisted things I read in the Hunger Games.
Which is crackers because there's a bit at the end of Hunger Games 1 where they create the mutts, which are genetically engineered sort of animals, humans,
Mm.
creatures, whatever, to look like the dead tributes. Um, what I would love now is I'm just second guessing every single person in the Hunger Games is like a reb who all the rebels and everything. Like, could one of them have been Snow's spy?
Yeah,
Like,
because
and
yeah,
obviously not because clearly it would have been we would have found out about it, but the potential for that would have been massive.
mm, yeah.
Maybe,
Also, really interesting that they don't want to be seen as making mistakes this time. Like they don't give a shit who dies in the 10th one. Like if
uh,
someone dies before the games, they just think, oh well, they didn't make it to the games. They died of starvation or they died of rabies or whatever it is.
yeah,
But in this one, it's like, oh no, we cannot let them see that the capital makes mistakes because we have to convince the people that we are in control of this situation. So we
yeah,
have to show Luella going in because even her dying through the crash, as we know, the parade manager or whoever it is killed by Snow because of the carriage crash.
yep, yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's going back to that. They're still not a well-oiled, perfect machine, and it also goes even further back to what you were saying about like having to have the propaganda in the capital of no peacekeepers, no peace. Like clearly not everyone's fully on board yet. So yeah, that's interesting. I text you. We're introduced to Lulu. They eventually they try to differentiate her from Luella to try and not get angry at her because it isn't her fault. So they call her Lulu to make her a completely different person. And she just walks around going, hello, I'm Luella from District 12. Hello, Plutarch. And I text Amy being like, have you seen the Wallace and Gromit film, Curse of the Were-Rabbit? And you text me back going, yes. Not.
I did.
And in your head, I realize reading that you're like, what the fuck is this? So I likened Luella to, if you have seen the film, Wallace. If you haven't seen the film, sorry, Wallace's essence gets put into to a rabbit, and a rabbit gets put into Wallace, which is what creates him and makes him the were-rabbit. Sorry, spoilers for Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were-Rabbit. It's been out for years now, guys. So the Wallace rabbit just walks around going, "Hello, I'm Wallace," sticking his hand out, and that's all I could think of with Lulu for a little bit. And then it got tragic and I felt really bad and I didn't really think about that anymore.
It did make me laugh though, because the whole time that Liv was behind me having read it, I was just like looking at my phone, like, when is she going to experience something sad? When is she going to experience something sad? So when you messaged me and you just were like, have you seen Wallace and Gromit? I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Liv? Get on with it. I thought you'd like went off to do something else. I was just like, read the book.
Yeah,
Because by this point, I was just like rocking back and forth, being like, please, someone have read this book so that I can talk to them about it.
yeah. The rocking back and forth is right though, because when once the epilogue had been done, I was just I finished it at about 2, 3 this morning and I just sat with it on my chest, just lying down, just looking at the wall. Just I'm not even sure how I felt. I didn't cry at the end, but I think it's because I was just so uh, I,
I've got more teary-eyed since, and I think from reading other people's perspective of it, or what maybe like seeing videos and stuff on TikTok, I've felt myself welling up about things since then. So, the commentary around when he goes home and he spots that at the funeral and he spots Merrily, Maisley's twin, in the
oh
crowd, and he shouts Maisley. He's so traumatized by everything he's experienced that he just sees her face and thinks, "Is that you?" And it's
yeah,
so hard to read.
and it's that it's I thought it was really beautifully done because everyone who in all forms of literature like they're all haunted by the ghosts of my past, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And it was a really wonderful way to do it without being like he's haunted by the ghosts of his past. Have him
Yeah.
see her and but have that moment of not understanding that it's her twin, and yeah, the brutal, and then that of course makes her upset and it's just like, oh God. The ending. Let's talk a bit more post sort of Lenore's death. Oh, then into the epilogue.
Mm. It was brutal. Was it gratuitously sad? Was it too sad in places? I don't think so. I mean, there was some parts where I was like, come on. Like there was reference to Sid and Ma being buried together because they were found clutching one another. And the reason that the fire couldn't be put out in Haymitch's mind was because he hadn't filled the cistern up. He had shirked his sort of chores before he was taken to the reaping so he could go and see Lenore. So he saw that as the ultimate selfish thing that led to his mum and his brother being killed in a fire.
I didn't even get that foreshadowing
Jeez.
until you just mentioned it there because obviously he talks about the cistern as he's on the train. He's like, "Oh no, that's gonna have to be Sid's thing now. Oh, I can't believe it."
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And what an innocent childish thing to do. You've shirked your responsibilities to go and do something else. 'Cause that's what kids should be able to do. It shouldn't be a life or death situation.
yeah, yeah, just right in the gut. Right. Um, just I loved, and sorry, we're not talking about the end here at all. I loved the bit where, I mean, it killed me, but I loved the bit where he gets on the train and he said, "Why did I tell him he has to be the man of the house now? Why did I do that? Like, that's not." You could see him warring with like, "This is what you're supposed to say to people."
And
Like
what, yeah.
at that thing and what he actually wanted to say, and clearly just like in that sort of shell-shocked moment of, the fact that he wasn't ever meant to be reaped. Like, oh, that relief he has when he hears the second kid's name and
Were you just read like, what? I was like, what's happening?
yeah,
What's going on? Because we were, I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a surprise. It was like interesting to know who the other tributes were. And you're like, oh, okay, right. Luella, Maisley, yeah, Wyatt. And then you thought, well, I know who the next person's going to be. Oh no, you don't. You don't know. And then for it not to even be someone volunteering and or even for them to say, oh, we'll just pull another name out, it was
Yeah.
because he got involved and because he tried to protect Lenore, who was sort of being, I think she was being restrained, a peacekeeper or something.
She
And
was,
then
I think,
Drusilla just says, "Oh well, we found our volunteer then."
yeah, I hated Drusilla.
Oh yeah, I loved the fact that when she like when she hit Maisie, Maisie just smacked her right back. I was like,
Yeah, just another reason why Maisie is our queen. But the ending, yeah, that's a really interesting point about do you think this potentially just was gratuitously sad? I think there's definitely, I don't know about the word gratuitous. I think that a level before that this potentially sound
mm-hmm.
because I mean
Yeah,
the aim was to destroy us, right? Like she's writing this going
totally. Yeah, it felt like that sometimes. It was just the word choice, the imagery. The
Yeah.
idea of him being, he couldn't find her grave, couldn't find Lenore's grave, so he curled up under her window and basically just had to beg to be allowed to see her.
Yeah. The bit you sent me, which I'm going to read out, when he does get her grave, because he's thrown all of his friends basically away. He doesn't want them to be with him. He keeps to keep them safe, but also keep him alone. And he throws a rock at Katniss's mum that we've get told of.
Yeah,
And then that makes his friend like hate him. And
yeah.
then his friend immediately later on tells him where the grave is, shows him where the grave is. And it's, yeah, you text me that. I lie on her grave and remain there as night falls, dawn breaks, and blackness descends again. I tell her everything and beg her to return to me, to wait for me, to forgive me for all the ways in which I have failed.
Because that's it, isn't it? That is the ultimate. He just feels like it's all his fault.
Getting upset.
I know. And this is the thing you do. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I haven't didn't cry when I finished it because I think you feel hollow, but as soon as you start talking about it or looking at it or reading things about it, it's like, God, that is so upsetting
Yeah.
for a young adult book.
Oh yeah,
Um,
but I think this definitely treads the line and has been treading the line since 2008, right? Like one of our lovely followers, her name is Ellen. She was messaging me. We have two Ellens, just to be clear. So she was messaging me saying like, "Oh, I didn't really like. I've not read the books," and I was like, "Oh my gosh." She's like, "Do I read this one first?" And I was like, "No, you do not read this one
no,
first.
no.
Start. You start in published order. You start."
Mhm.
She's just finished the first one, and she messaged us sort of saying like, "I can't believe it's so dark for such a YA book."
Yeah.
And I was
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, I mean, it's real world
Would
power."
it get away with it now? I just don't know. Would it be able to be quite so graphic now? I mean, I guess we can argue that yes, it would because Sunrise is classed as young adult still. But is that because of how popular The Hunger Games was and
Mm.
is, I guess? I mean, Ballad to me didn't feel young adult at all.
No, ballad. It's a weird one. Like, yeah, because it's associated with the Hunger Games, does it therefore get the YA stamp? But we've both read plenty of YA books that tread that line, right? Like
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
are very much at the top level. We talk a lot about how YA ranges from 13 to 18. Like, and to tread that line of 18, you
Mm.
do have a darker, you have an edge. That's what I think I now look for in YA. It's difficult for me when we read a YA and it's so YA.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
But
totally.
then who's to blame there? Is it me for going in with higher expectations? Anyway, moving on. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's YA, but it's obviously realistic, you know, in this context.
In this context, for sure, it's just so sometimes, I think it's sometimes the psychological elements of it are just veer a little bit more adult for me. Like the fact that there are mutts doesn't really stress me out, but the fact that they were genetically modified to look like the dead tributes, that's another level.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's a lot for
That's
a younger audience to read. And I don't think I really got how sad it actually was when I was reading it when I was, what, 16 or whatever it was. So,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think for me I was more confused as to what was happening more than anything else. And they don't do that in the films at all. it's not done, it's not covered. You see the mutts, but they're sort of like big black dogs.
They have faces. They have people, humans. I watched it last night. They do have kind of humanoid faces, but they don't really look like anybody. So you don't, and there's never any, no one ever says, oh, that looks like such and such. So that connection's never really made.
It's tough, right? Because obviously it's first person and it's all Katniss. We get her thoughts, but obviously in the film, we're not just going to get her going, they look like the dead tributes.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I want to talk about the epilogue because I was so thankful for that page and a half. It's,
That little sprinkling of hope at the end.
but also that little sprinkling of, oh, we're checking back in with Katniss and Peter. And I'm
I
like,
know.
yay! But also,
Yeah, I
no.
know. Yeah. So we're
Yeah.
post Mockingjay.
And it's clearly, oh, God, everything so sad has happened in Mockingjay as well. Anyway, moving on. And
Gosh, this series, why do we do this to ourselves? Like, I'm reading it again and I'm already dreading it.
and he talks about the first time he sees her, that the first time Burdock brings her to the Hob.
I
Uh,
didn't expect that. That got me again. Didn't expect that. Didn't think he was going to mention seeing her as a baby because he would have been her uncle. Like they were so close, him and Burdock, that he would have been a big part of her life.
yeah,
So for him to just give that all up because he couldn't bear it, he couldn't bear to put his friends in danger and he couldn't bear to love anyone again.
yeah, yeah. And it's the line where it's I didn't want to let them in, her and Peter, but the walls of a person's heart are not impregnable, not if they have ever known love. That's what Lenore Dove says anyway. Ugh!
Mm.
Just so beautiful. The way that you now I saw a thing and I'm putting this in my head as canon because we have the epilogue and because he talks about the reason why this story has come out essentially is because they're talking about the scrapbook and they're doing a section of for each person and somebody said this means that this book is just Haymitch telling the story to Katniss and Peter.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw someone say that too, and I thought, God, you just kick me on down. Like I'm already dead. She's he's already dead. That's what it felt like. I felt like I can't read anything, make myself any more upset about this. Yeah, yeah. I think you're spot on there for sure.
Yeah, thank you,
Um,
nameless. Thank you, nameless TikTok
thank
person
you.
we don't remember the name of.
And the
Yeah,
goats, we understand the goats. Not the goats, the geese. The geese. We understand the geese. I'm thinking about Prim's goat. Yeah, we just there's so much nuance. Everything is deliberate, everything is intentional, a masterpiece.
I saw another TikTok that somebody said that Suzanne purposely wrote this sort of love story between Lenore and Haymitch because she sees the kiss that they have on the in the film with between Haymitch and Effie, and she was like, "No fucking way!"
I know. And then I also saw someone saying, I totally get it after rereading Ballad, that people were a bit thirsty over Snow, because of like some of the fan edits. Yeah, guilty. And I think it's her chance to be like, oh, this is the guy. Just because he's blonde and tall, I'll show you exactly
Yeah,
why you're wrong there.
yeah.
And it's
Um,
like, okay, yeah, sorry. Yes, yes, he's a bad person. I'm sorry.
Before we move on to the reviews, I want to
Uh-huh.
read one review. It is a 5 star, but it doesn't actually say anything about why they loved the book. It is just one line, and it's Coriolanus Snow, you will answer for your crimes, and Tom Blythe cannot save you.
That's great.
I'm going to start with the 1 stars because fuck them, basically. Okay. Derivative and lazy. And I think that potentially links into a lot more of the other ones, which is essentially it's derivative and lazy, utilizing characters to pander to nostalgia and not to try anything new. Too many cameos was fan service. Those are like the sort of the
hmm
main
hmm
gripes that I have from people. I can understand why people would take the cameos as a negative. It's not, there was a point where I thought, oh God, this is probably getting a bit much now. But I
hmm
liked the subtle cameos and I liked that because I liked the speculation of it, like, oh, do we think
Yeah,
that's cynic? Like, oh, that's really cool, that sort of cool thing. But yeah, some of them were a bit much. I think it was because it was one after the other after the other. Wirus, Mags, Beatty. Effie, like,
Yeah, when Effie kind of took, because I knew when we heard that the kind of tap 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 of the heels, I thought, who's it gonna be? And I don't know. I don't necessarily disagree with it because I do think some of them really did help us understand the character motivations later on.
mm,
So we do see how compassionate Mags is, and then it helps us to understand why she would volunteer.
for
You
Annie.
know, yeah. So I think there was a lot of intention behind making so many of the characters relevant in Haymitch's story.
Yeah.
I would need to go back. That's why I want to go back and reread the trilogy to see if there's any links there so that we can tell if that was intentional. It felt pretty intentional reading it, but
Mm,
I think there might have been certain elements of who could this person be? Oh, let's make it Effie. There's a little bit of that sprinkled throughout. But I had a great time. And to be honest, when I knew a character came in, I was just like, cool, let's see how they interacted with Haymitch. Like, let's see what they were like when they were younger.
yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I think, it's yes, I can see why. And there was a point where I went, geez, these cameos are popping up, aren't they? But at the same
Mm,
time, it's a universe I love, it's a universe we love, it's a universe everyone loves. Why would we not want to spend time in it again?
exactly. There was fan service, but was it a bad thing? In my opinion, no.
Yeah. Another review, which is not kind, is so
Oh,
far this book is fucking ass. Which I was just like, okay. And they argue that the character of Haymitch is completely unrecognizable. The themes lamenting about how awful the American government are is punching you in the face throughout the book, and subtlety doesn't exist.
subtlety's never existed in the Hunger Games. It's never, you're not reading it for that. There's a very strong message that Suzanne's trying to get across. And it just so happens that it is as relevant, if not more so, now than it was in 2008.
Yeah, that's it. For me, this person goes on to say that like it's basically exactly the same as the trilogy. It's a regurgitated version, and I was
Mm.
like, even if it is. I think that's symbolism that we're letting what happened potentially in the late 1930s, early 1940s start happening again, you
Mm.
know? And maybe that's me with an English literature degree, or I'm sat in my English GCSE class trying to give Suzanne too much credit. But that's how I've sort of seen it. Like, I don't think it's exactly the same. It's difficult not to feel that it's exactly the same because it's a prequel to something we already know happens. But yeah, I'd say that it's more about history repeating itself again and again if we don't speak up, that sort of thing.
And there is a formula. There is a formula. There is a reaping. Then they are taken to the capital. Then they are trained or not trained, depending on how far along we are in the progress of things. And then they're put into the games. So
Yeah.
there is formulaic, but that doesn't feel like a bad thing to me because, well, this is what we're here to read about.
Yeah.
The idea of you can't stop the sunrise. I think that's it. That's sort of what we're saying. Like you can't do it. No one's suggesting that, but I think the message that Lenore's trying to get across is if you don't try and change it, then there's no chance of it ever being
Yeah,
any
that's it.
different.
The sun is always going to rise, absolutely, but it will also definitely still continue to rise if you don't try. If nothing you do, if you don't, yeah.
Yeah. They're in a terrible situation. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the worst set. I mean, I love it. But I love settings. I love the settings. I love Panem. I love the capital. I love the districts. I think it's genius. But it's horrendous way to live. I
Mm,
mean, and Suzanne does not pull any punches in showing you the reality of what this life would be like.
yeah. Yeah. How did you enjoy the law being dropped? Because there was clearly
Loved it.
like, uh, uh,
Oh, I
uh.
loved it.
She was just flinging. She was just, yeah,
Katniss's parents, I was just like, what? And then I was thinking, we know their names. Oh no, we don't. We don't know their names. How have I not picked that up before? I thought we
yeah,
knew Katniss's mum was called Astrid, but then when I was looking, I was like, wait a minute, no, we don't. We don't know who she is,
yeah.
really. We don't know anything
I,
about her apart from she's a bit hopeless and she's traumatized and she's kind of given up. But
yeah,
actually, now that you understand her story more, that she was like quite well off for District 12 standards. She wanted to be with a boy from the seam. It was never going to work. And then through all the odds, they made it work. And then he dies. And what we know is likely to be a mine explosion that was set up by the Capitol, right? So
Yeah,
we understand why she's so affected by it too.
and we're given canon evidence that Katniss is a Covey descendant, that she
Yeah.
is Lucy Gray's
Yeah,
descendant, that she's
Ivory.
Maud Ivory's descendant. Thank you. Yeah, I was just like Maud, and I was like, come on, Amy's read
Maud
the book.
color. What's the color? What's the
Yeah,
color?
yeah. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
Maud Ivory's descendant. Like, oh, all that. The fact that we have a grave for Lucy Gray suggests that she survived and then came back, does it suggest
Don't
to us,
know.
or does it suggest to us that in fact that is her grave and she died out there?
Or did she not? Did they never find her body and that's just symbolic? Like they've just laid her to rest with the other Coveys, but we never actually found out what happened to her. I
But
don't know.
Lenore never talks about her, so that makes me think
No.
that there's a secret there.
Ah, that's a good point. And also, I like the fact that Lenore is taking little bits of her character with how she dresses and the way she is. So she's trying to keep her very much alive. So yeah, I think you're right. There must be something to it that we
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. Another 1-star review, and I picked this one out because it's fucking stupid. Uh, no, again, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but this one, no. This one, but I wanted to read it out because it's important. Returning this to the store due to LGBT content, I am very disappointed. I'm buying Nadine blah 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 blah. If you want a clean Christian alternative with some Hunger Games-esque type thing, there you go.
Oh, I'm
Basically,
not even going to give that any.
she's literally complaining about Carmine. Like,
Nah,
disgrace. What? Sorry. So, the sex trafficking, murder of children wasn't too much for you, but like,
going to say that's not the point of this book.
but the
It's so
line.
far removed from the point of this book.
What? I even had to struggle when I saw it. I had to struggle to be like, what LGBT
I was going to
content?
say, what? Yeah, right, Carmine. Yeah,
Yeah.
next.
She clearly from District 1. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. Was there anything else? Oh, this one. This one came up quite a bit. Cash grab. People thought this was just a
Oh,
selfish
come on.
grab.
How long did it take her to write it? When did Ballad come out?
21 or 2020. I think it might
Right,
I think it might
4 or 5 years ago.
yeah, yeah.
I don't think you can ever accuse Suzanne Collins of doing this for cash. I mean, all right, she's made a lot of money from it, but she doesn't she doesn't sort of milk it
Well,
to
that's
the
it.
fullest extent of how she could.
If this was a cash grab, she'd have cranked out books every year since the Hunger Games came out.
She's got
Uh,
unlimited content. She could write about every games if she wanted to. She could write a backstory about every single character.
yep, yep, yep.
We would eat it up. I would read them all. So, and she hasn't done that. So,
Yeah.
nah, I don't buy that.
Yeah, normally I think to myself, okay, no, I could see the only thing I could see that potentially I might agree with very lightly is the cameos, but we've talked about that, you know? But everything else, it just seems like poison.
Hmm.
Hey, speaking of which,
Hmm.
clearly President Snow. Yeah, 5 stars. Let's go out on a high. Captured me so easily, so much additional lore, transformative and emotional.
Perfect. Thumbs all up. I was in from the very first sentence. As soon as I learned that his birthday was on Reaping Day, I was like, and we're back. We're back to have our hearts broken again.
Oh, and Reaping Day is on July 4th. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, love her.
I mean, I don't think we have to really talk about those 5 stars. We're very much agreeing with there. I do want to talk about something else that was quite nicely subtle, as well as, Reaping Day's on July. Did we know we didn't know Reaping Day was on July 4th until this book, right?
No, we knew in Ballad.
We did. Oh,
Mhm.
that's it. Sorry. I knew it wasn't the
Mm.
original trilogy, but I sometimes I forget Ballad exists.
Why would that be?
It's the
Yeah.
bit about AI for me that just really. So on page 201, it says it's about Plutarch and he's excited about getting to edit the clips together. He sighs when he mentions the tools that were abolished and incapacitated in the past, ones deemed fated to destroy humanity because of their ability to replicate any scenario using any person. We almost wiped
Oh,
ourselves out even without them, so you can imagine, but oh, the possibilities.
I'm getting chills.
And I mean,
Yeah.
what I love about that, yeah, she's telling us that about the troubles of AI, but she's not hammering the point home. That is it. That's all we get.
I think the fantastic thing about the trilogy and the prequels, and this always hits me now and again, and it's really jarring, is that this is the future. This is our future.
Yes,
It
yeah.
reads like it's the past in time because it's a lot of the time it's, I mean, especially ballad. I think that really reads like a bygone era in a
Mm,
way. But this is yet to happen.
yeah. If she's got the prophetic powers of Margaret Atwood, I yeah.
Well, we won't be here for that in
Yeah.
300 years, so that's good.
Woo! Yeah. Um, yeah, absolutely. It's a terrifying thought. But yeah, you're right. It does feel like it's in the past because it's things like District 12, it's so run down. There's barely
Mhm.
any technology
There's
and
coal, like we're using
we're back
we're
to
back
using
to
fossil fuels,
fossil
yeah.
fuels. Yeah, totally.
And that
Yeah.
very sort of I mean, the fact that they're kept separate in the districts of you do this, you do that, but you're all a cog in a machine, and if one of you fails, the rest of us fail. It's that
Hmm.
clever way of making it so that they're all accountable for each of their own survival.
Yeah. There's also so much, I mean, again, setting love it, love it, love it. There's still so many question marks about what's going on in the rest of the world. Has it just been nuclear fallout and the rest of the world is just gone?
Yeah.
Or are there other Hunger Games happening? Or even more terrifying, is everybody else just going along as normal, but they've completely cut off Panem, which, as we know, is North America.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Um, I I get the feeling that everyone else is either dead or there's sort of things like Panem have cropped up in different places. I had this really interesting. And this is probably old news for everyone. I always assumed that she sort of got the inspiration for the Hunger Games from Battle Royale, which is a Japanese
Mm, mm, mhm.
film where they do a similar thing as kids on an island, they all have to kill each other. But have you ever heard Suzanne Collins talk about how where she actually got the idea from?
No.
She was watching she was flicking one night between a reality TV show and the coverage of the Iraq War.
Mm.
And that to me was just this roots this very deep in reality that this could become what we live like, which is just
This
terrible.
could happen because we're slowly becoming more and more and more desensitized to everything.
Yeah.
So when you first read the Hunger Games back in 2008, I think you think, well, that's never going to happen. How would anybody accept that? But look at what we accept now. No one does anything about it. And it's that sense of why don't you fight back? Why don't you do something? Well, we're in that position right now. And a lot of the time is because we just don't have the power. Or in some people, we don't have the inclination because you're looking after number one. And I can see that sense of selfishness leading to something like this. It's not a million miles away. It's a really frightening read
Yeah, and
now.
also I think it comes to that sort of rhetoric that people are saying when it's silence is violence. Like you are complicit if you are silent in the things that are happening in the world.
Scary.
Yeah, you wanted to talk about poison.
I just wanted to talk very quickly because the arena is really interesting.
Mm,
We get told that some of the other tributes are really slow off the mark because the arena is stunningly beautiful.
mm,
And then we realize that it's deadly because everything in it is poisonous. So you cannot consume anything. You can't drink from the streams, you can't eat any of the sort of wildlife that's going around because everything is poisoned. And it just struck me how personal that felt because we know that that is Snow's weapon of choice. We know that Snow likes well, that he poisons people. We see it in this, but we know from before that he has these sores in his mouth. That's why he smells of blood and why he wears a rose because he almost has to poison himself every time so that he can trick whoever it is into drinking whatever it is or eating whatever it is that's imbibed with the poison too. And it just felt like that, I don't know, it just felt very, very personal. Like he was really involved in this one.
yeah. It was almost as if the arena itself was Lucy Gray
Love it.
because, that's how he saw her. That's how he sees her as this beautiful thing. but that betrayed him and is thus deadly and poisonous in herself. She poisoned him against his own way of life, and he
Hmm.
almost, was tricked into that by her.
Get over it. Get over it, man. Especially reading it back now, you're like, wasn't that deep?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. And then the zooming out, which was I didn't expect at all of it being an eye. So that
Yeah.
1984 imagery,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. I mean,
Like,
there's making a point, and then there's
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
making a point.
Yeah, no, now that I think about it, AI may not have been rammed down our throats, but this might have. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure Haymitch even says we don't need to know that the Capitol's always watching or something like that. So it's just like, oh, okay. Spoon feed, spoon feed.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
But interesting because if you are aiming at a younger audience who maybe have not came across that book before, and don't realize that all the Big Brother is watching you thing isn't really from Big Brother that we
Yeah.
know and reality TV that we know, it's rooted in something much, much older. Um, then maybe that is what she's trying to do there, just to make that little Easter egg, that little allusion to it. But I did laugh a little bit when I was like, "Oh, it's an eye, is it? Oh, I wonder what that means. What could that mean?"
You've been eliminated. We're coming to get you.
Yeah.
Um,
You're live on Channel 4. Please do not swear. Yeah.
yeah, it was a little tacky, but why wouldn't you ram that point home, Or they're always watching. And it fascinates me that it makes me think about the fact that we created Big Brother, a reality TV show where to make money, to make people sort of B-list, C-list celebrities at the end of it, based on the concept of a dystopian novel written about a time where it's all secret police and a totalitarian government and regime. Like, it seems mad to me that and so now I
No,
can
we would take that inspiration and be like, oh, that's good.
how
That's what we
fun!
need to
Oh my
do.
God, yeah, and we'll get Davina McCall to host it.
Oh, turning in his grave. Orwell is like, I gave you this was a cautionary tale, guys, not a manual. Well,
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts? I've seen a lot of people sort of scoffing at the idea that, people, she says that she won't ever write another one unless she's got something to say. I've seen that banded around an awful lot on TikTok and people sort of being like, no, yeah. But isn't it that it comes from David Hume, and that's sort of her inspiration. The idea that the sun will not rise tomorrow is no less an intangible a proposition and implies no more contradiction than the affirmation that it will rise. Exactly what you said way, well, I would
mm,
say hours ago, but actually we've come through this a lot faster than I thought we would. But
mm,
just such an interesting reason as to why she's written it now.
mhm. Yeah. I don't know if she will write another one. I think I've seen a lot of people talking about Finnick and his story, but I think she had something really to say with
Mm.
Haymitch's story, and I don't think she would have written it if she didn't feel she had enough to say.
Whilst I would love a Finnick story, I would love to read everything about Finnick. I think this will be the end because in my head, this is every one of District 12's victors.
Hmm.
This
Hmm.
was, we had Lucy Gray, we've now had Haymitch, and we've had Katniss and Peter. Those are the only victors of the Hunger Games from District 12.
Yeah. And
And
I honestly wouldn't mind if, I mean, I'll read whatever she writes. If she would wants to do another one, I will be right there at the front of the line to get the book. But it wouldn't upset me or bother me if this is the last one because I think this is you're going out in an absolute blaze of glory. This was a masterpiece, and I think you can end on this, and I'll be satisfied.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about the thing that we weren't sure we were gonna do. Um, there are 5 books in the series. Rank them from
Brutal.
from worst to best.
Right, okay. So coming, this is awful because I'm just going to say that if I was going to give these a rating of out of 5, none of them fall below a 4. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
like 4.55, right?
Quit stalling. Let's.
Sorry. Right. 5 is Mockingjay.
Oh, 5 is ballad for me.
4 is Ballad for me.
Four,
Yeah.
4 is. Oh, 4 is The Hunger Games.
3 is The Hunger Games.
3 is Sunrise on the Reaping.
2 is Sunrise on the Reaping.
2 is Mockingjay.
1 is Catching Fire.
1 is always Catching Fire. Yes, 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 yes.
The best. That was really difficult to do. I need to go back and read them and maybe change. I might change my order reading the trilogy again because it's been a long time. But yeah, that was impossible.
Final thoughts.
We don't rate books on the podcast,
Oh, okay. Yes, no, we do not.
but if we did, this is a 5-star read for me.
Okay. Yeah. And do you think this is a 5-star read because of the nostalgia, because of the cameos, because of the love,
Yes.
or is it also
No.
a five? No. Okay.
No, it's 100% what you're saying. It is not a perfect book.
Mm.
I don't think that I can understand people's thoughts about why it wouldn't be 5 stars, but for me, how it made me feel, it was a perfect setup for reading it. It just ticked. It wildly went above and beyond my expectations, and I enjoyed all the cameos. I liked seeing all the characters again. I loved seeing all the nuance. It was devastating. It's one of the best books I've read this year.
Ooh.
Mm.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't know if I'm giving it 5. I know we don't rate the
Fair.
book, so it's not really something I'm going to try to dwell on.
No,
But
but it's hard, isn't it? Like when you're trying to give those, especially with a book you enjoy, you kind of need to think, where does it sit? Like,
yeah,
is it incredible or is there bits that aren't quite hitting?
I think for me, the best bit about reading this book was getting to do this podcast.
Oh, that's nice.
Um, and also then also when Alex finishes it, getting to talk to him about it. And then
Yeah,
for you, obviously, how good is it going to be when Rory reads them?
I'm
And
so excited. I didn't
and
think he would do it, but after watching Hunger Games last night and seeing my reaction to this, he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll read them." It's like, you can't believe you haven't read them.
to be
Yeah.
to be fair though, I Alex only read them last year.
Mm. I
And I
think
read them.
do you know, I think they pass some people by.
Well, it's like my Disney film theory, but I'm going to tell you that off podcast. This final thoughts is too long. But yes, so I think the joy of this book is getting to talk about it with you, getting to see all of the sort of TikTok like theories,
Hmm. Yeah, it's
getting
great.
to revisit the books. I think, yeah, so there's a huge element of nostalgia there, but also love for this series that I think was great. If you have not read it, why have you not read it? There are spoilers everywhere. You will not be spared. There have been spoilers in the last hour and however long here, so hopefully you have read
Hmm.
it if you are listening. Um, yeah, yeah, this is a great book,
If
and
you've read the other 4 and you're for whatever reason putting this one off, don't do it anymore. Trust me, it's going to be worth it.
definitely, I'm glad I did not reread any before this.
Me too. And I almost reread Ballad before this. I'm really pleased I didn't
Yeah,
because reading it afterwards was horrendous. It was a horrible experience, but it didn't take away from this.
no, absolutely. Um, yeah, this was great, and I had so much fun reading it, so much fun talking about it. I do think we've got a lot more to talk about it, but that could be for a little Patreon episode if we
Mhm.
really do a deep dive into theories. I think that would be a really fun thing for us to do.
Yeah, I think we need more time, don't we? I think we need to process it. Like I only finished it a few days ago, you finished it yesterday, so I think we need to go away, look at all the parallels that people are picking out and really look into it deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you think to yourself, "Oh my God, it's 2008 again. What am I going to read?" Obviously, we can offer you anything by Veronica Roth for dystopian fiction. Amy, you have some faves from the 2008 era when dystopia was massive.
Crazy when that happened. The Uglies
Oh,
would
Scott
be,
Westerfeld. I
yeah,
mean,
Scotland, and some of them are not so good, but yeah,
the ending
fantastic.
the ending to specials, I don't think anyone understands. So
No, but it's worth it. It's worth your time. I loved, is it Matched?
yeah, yeah, that's the one you always say that I
Mhm.
didn't get to read because it's her and like the green bubble in it.
Yeah,
Yeah, on the
yes,
cover. Yeah, that
that's a
one
good
passed me
scene.
by. Yeah. For me, it's the Chemical Garden trilogy. I don't remember who it's by, but that's the one that Amy and I always sort of like, oh, that one passed me by, that one passed me by. Yeah, they're just great books. I mean, they're young. They're not nobody's nobody's beaten Suzanne.
I was going to say that's the thing. This Suzanne and the Hunger Games sparked so many dystopian young adult books,
Mm,
and I don't think any of them came close to the Hunger Games. So go for those first. Read them all, um,
absolutely.
because that's the standard.
Mm, yeah, 100%. 100%. I would say that Veronica Roth has written some better dystopian fiction since
Oh, Poster Girl,
Divergent.
fantastic.
Poster Girl. I mean, obviously, friend of the podcast, Poster Girl. Veronica Roth, friend of the podcast.
Another one.
Um, we need a board with all these people on, little
I
pictures of
know,
all these
with just
people.
their little face. Yeah, that'd be
Um,
so funny. A little audience that we can just keep adding to.
yeah, absolutely. But Amy, will you please? We will never quite leave the Hunger Games behind, but will you please tell us what we're reading next week?
Yeah, but I'm just looking at this fantastic little summary of it. A fierce, powerful Sapphic reworking of Carmilla, the book that inspired Dracula.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, we're all about it. Hungerstone by Kat Dunn.
so excited, so looking forward to it. I'm a bit worried I'm in a bit of a slump, so
I'm gonna say, can I stop reading the Hunger Games long enough to read this book?
I
Time will
know.
tell.
Yeah. Sorry, Cat, in advance. Yeah. Um, can you
And then
imagine
will
if
I then want to read Hunger Games fan fiction to fill the void?
oh,
Let's try and have a bit of discipline, Amy. You're not good at it, but let's try.
what do you think will be your tag though for Hunger Games fan fiction? Because I think it's going to be original female character and Peter Malark for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say no more about it because it makes me a bad person.
Okay, well, we'll definitely hear about that off pod. Um,
Yeah.
excellent. Anyway, yeah, thanks guys for joining us. We hope this has helped your grieving process in one way or another. May the odds be ever in your favor. Happy reading.